How many of you guys here tonight ever feel like you're in the middle of a winter in your lives? Anybody? Anybody feel like they're in winter right now? Anybody have ever felt like you're in winter before? I used to live in a state of constant denial about winter. In fact, when I used to have 4 Mustangs. And I don't know if you guys know it or not, but Mustangs don't do good in the snow. And they don't do good in Pennsylvania in the wintertime at all. And to top it off, I also had a band, and so I was starting to accumulate musical equipment and stuff and trying to make it to shows and stuff in a Mustang. And so I'd load up the back of the car, the trunk, and with monitors and speakers. And I mean, how many of you know Mustangs were not designed for that? Yeah. But I don't know, a little rabbit trail there. Anyhow, so I have a theory. that God has given everyone a dream. Has God given you a dream here tonight? I think that's my personal theory, but I think God has given everybody a dream, and that's set deep inside of your soul from the time that you're a very small child. And it's said that there are 3 different stages in our lives. Number 1, as children, we know exactly who we are and who we're going to be. Can you guys go back? I mean, I know for some of you that's a long time back. Can you go that far back and think when you were a kid? And did you have a dream? Did you at 2 years old? Did you go over and just dance and sing and stand in front of the stereo and just dance? I mean, did anybody else here do that? I did that at 2 years old. There was a lady that came to our church, and she actually gave. I was the cutest little kid. I had curly hair, and so she gave me her tape. And for the longest time, man, I would get up in the morning, I would go over, and I would put her tape on, and I would just dance around and sing to her tape all morning. For those of you that don't know what cassette tapes are, they're this little. You guys know, right? 8-track. What's that? So anyhow, so number 1, as children, we know exactly who we are and who we're going to be. That's set deep inside of us. God's put that inside of us from the time that we're very small. And number 2, as we become adults, somewhere along the line, we start to convince ourselves that, of reasons why we can't be what we've always knew that we would be. The reality of it starts to set in. I gotta get a job. I gotta have a car. I got bills to pay. And somewhere along the line, we end up losing track of what God made us to do. And number 3 in the process is realizing, after we've been through the middle stage here, coming to realize that as children, maybe we really did have it figured out as kids. Maybe we really were made to do that thing. Maybe that's the only thing that would really give us a fulfillment in life, doing what God made us to do. And don't get me wrong, it all starts with Jesus. It all starts with Him because He made us, and He made us to have a relationship with Him. And it's because of Him that we're created. It was because of Him that we can have a relationship with God, and it's because of Him that we can have hope in a future. But that's just the foundation. Coming to trust in Jesus, that's just the foundation. There's a whole house to build on that foundation. There's hope in the future. Jeremiah 29:11. I know the thoughts that I have for you, says the Lord. Plans to prosper you, not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. Going back to that dream, though, it's a picture in your head that God has put there. It's something that you want to do or become, but it's just the end picture of what everything else will lead to. And it's a 3-step process. Number 1, it starts with your gifts, the abilities that God has given you. For some, that might be working behind a desk on a computer. It might be writing a computer program. It might be building a house. It might be laying carpet, as I do. That's been my profession since I've been 12 years old. I started working with my dad when I was 12. So this 3-step process starts with your gifts, with your abilities. And then you couple that with your assignment. Your assignment and your gifts are 2 different things here. And this is something that the Holy Spirit really showed me yesterday morning, and it blew my mind. So your assignment is to a specific person or people, whether at work, family, or other. And your assignment can vary from day to day. We were at an Easter egg hunt with a church in Mifflintown last week, and I dabble in video work and stuff, and they're getting ready to do a church relaunch. They just relaunched on Easter, but the Saturday before that, they were doing an Easter egg hunt. They had the whole community invited, and we're right before we're starting this Easter egg hunt, the pastor realized, oh my gosh, we don't have anybody taking pictures or anything. And I was like, well, like instantly, I realized that this is my assignment to these people right now. I have, Proverbs says to not withhold good from those, when you have the power in your hand to be able to help them, not to withhold that. And so I realized, well, hey, this is my assignment right now. And I coupled that assignment with my abilities to just on the fly start shooting video, and I put together this little promo video for them. And they were just thrilled. So you got the assignment, you got your gifts, and then doing that over and over and over, pouring your gifts into your assignment. You get a promotion maybe. You pour your gifts into your assignment. You empty yourself into your assignment. And eventually you keep on getting more promotions and more promotions. And as you prove yourself faithful in the little things, in the little areas where you're serving, you're able to get over into this next area and over here. And eventually, the assignment and the gifts is what lead to the dream. How many of you guys know the story of Joseph? Okay, so Joseph had a dream of leading his family. He served faithfully wherever his current assignment was. So Joseph, when he had the original dream, he told it to his brothers. Bad mistake. They threw him in a pit. They sold him into slavery. How many of you guys have older brothers that would do that to you? I was the older brother, so my sisters were less fortunate. I was the big brother that would always sign their names to things, and of course they would get in trouble. But Joseph told his dream to his brothers, and his father even rebuked him for it. Like, what do you think? You think I'm going to bow down and worship you? Because Joseph had a dream that they were out in the field and they were gathering up corn stalks or something, and that everybody else's stalks bowed down to his. And so his dad rebuked him for that. And so he ended up in prison. Actually, he ended up in Potiphar's house first, but when he was in Potiphar's house, Potiphar, I believe, was the captain of the guard in Egypt, and Joseph emptied himself into that assignment. He saw his current situation, even though he was a slave to Potiphar, he saw Potiphar as his current assignment, and he emptied his gifts, he emptied his creativity, he emptied his management skills into Potiphar's house. And it caused Potiphar's house to prosper, because Joseph emptied himself into his assignment. And we all know that Potiphar's wife ended up getting involved here and got him thrown into jail. And that's why I tell my son to stay away from girls. They're dangerous. But even when Joseph was in the prison, he saw that as his assignment, and he emptied himself into his assignment. So he was in Potiphar's house, he emptied himself into his assignment. You would think that the prison would have been a little bit of a demotion. You would think. I don't personally care for being in prison. Little rabbit trail, I was actually the first person locked up in South Mountain Juvenile Detention Center. I was working with my dad there. I was 12 years old. We finished this pod, and we were over in the next pod. But as we were working in the pods, we would duct tape all the latches to the different jail cells. We duct tape them shut so that the door couldn't close and lock you in there. And so we went over to the next pod over, and I had to go back and get supplies. So I came back over. I went into one of the cells to use the bathroom, and the darn thing closed behind me. And wouldn't you know, it was one of the only 2 locks in the whole place that did not work properly. So the electric mechanism actually did not work in that one. So I was stuck in the jail cell. And so one of the other guys that we were working with came over, and he saw me in there, and he's like, and you could tell that from personal experience, he knows, like, wow, this is bad. He's in there. Yeah, he knows from being stuck in one of those things himself that you don't get out of one of them. So prison is not a fun place to be. Fortunately enough for me, my brother-in-law slid me some comic books underneath the door, and I was able to make it through the next couple of hours until they got me through the window. But Joseph's situation was a lot different than mine, and Joseph emptied his gifts into his current situation, his current assignment. And when that happened, he interpreted dreams for Pharaoh's baker and butler. And from emptying himself into his current assignment, that led him to the palace. Now, what happened when he got to the palace? His work ethics didn't change. He still emptied himself into his assignment. All that changed was the assignment. He just emptied himself into his assignment. And what happened then, what that led to was the fulfillment of the dream. Because when he emptied himself into the Pharaoh's household then, all of Egypt was blessed. And they had plenty to get through the famine. And so then Joseph's family came down to Egypt then to buy food. And they bowed down to Joseph. But what that all stemmed from was Joseph seeing his assignment and emptying himself into it. It's in this middle part here where we can tend to get stuck when we're in the prison. Anybody ever feel like you're in prison? Feeling it as though that God has forgotten all about you and as though you have no purpose in life? Well, I want to encourage you not to lose sight of the dream of it. The dream is simply the end. It's the picture that God uses to motivate us for a life of purpose. God has a specific purpose for you being alive right now at this moment in time. Jeremiah 29:11 again, I know the thoughts that I have for you. I know the plans that I have for you. Plans to give you hope and a future. I used to, with my old Mustangs, many times I would, of course, try to put my guitar in the back of my trunk and it would not fit. One time we actually had to transport the drum set in the Mustang. And so we actually had to put the top down to get the drum set in. It was a convertible. We got the whole set in and then we had to rope it down. Because Mustangs, aren't designed to haul drum sets. It's the same thing with us. If we're attempting to do something that we're not designed to do, the results will tell, and it will steal our joy. On the flip side, when we are doing what we were designed for, there's an untold joy and fulfillment in doing that. And if you're in prison as Joseph was, your perception of that place as your current assignment will change the outcome of everything. Here's some things that we are designed for. We're designed for, number one, relationship with God. Number two, we're designed for relationship with those around us. Number three, we're designed for to influence others. And that could be good or bad. No matter what you do, you're influencing somebody. Somebody's always watching you. You're designed to live forever. Your soul is designed to live forever. And here's the one that I want to focus on tonight. It's number 5. You're designed in the image of God, and God is a creator. God's not a duplicator, He's a creator. And He designed us to be creative in His image. So we're creative by nature. All of us in our own unique way. And remember, He made us in His image, and that's creative. So imagine for a minute, the God who created the universe, God created the galaxy, the earth, the bees, mankind, fish, animals. God made all this stuff in all of its detail. The God that made all this stuff, his creativity. When you trust in Jesus, you believe in Jesus, and his Spirit comes inside of you, you have the creativity of the God of the universe that created all this stuff living inside of you. Imagine that power. Imagine that creativity that you have inside of you if you believe in Jesus. 2 Corinthians 5:17. Anybody here know it? If any man be in Christ, he is a new creation. All things are become new. God expresses himself through his creation. It brings him joy. God didn't need you. God wanted you. He created you specifically because he wanted a family. He didn't need you. He wanted you. He created you specifically because he wanted you to be part of his family. God expresses himself through his creation. It brings him joy. When he's living in us and we express ourselves through our creativity, we're bringing him joy. Whether you're creating a design for a house, writing a new computer program, or an app, or baking a cake, or writing a song or poetry, or simply formulating words in your mouth that you use to speak to someone else, you are being creative in one way or another. We all have that creative genius inside of us. If Jesus is living inside of us, his creativity, it's in there. So God designed each of us to be creative in our own unique way and to release that creativity, our gifts and talents, in our present assignment. The successful completion of this is what leads to the dream. Now imagine with me again, what if Christ followers everywhere began to recognize the potential of the creativity and the gifts living inside of them? Can you guys imagine that? How many of you guys can honestly say that you're living to your fullest creative potential? I'm not. What if we began to apply our gifts and creativity to our fullest potential in our current assignment? Our church would explode with new ideas, new songs, new ways of helping our community, solutions to problems, and even with money. And let's not forget the purpose for prosperity, as we saw in the story of Joseph. It was to be able to store up and help others in the time of famine, just as Joseph did. Here are some interesting quotes that have really inspired me recently. Number one, don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive. And go do it, because what the world needs are people who have come alive. And that was from Howard Thurman, who was a mentor of Martin Luther King. Here's another one. If you can't dream it, it won't happen. Number three, creativity is the very nature of God inside of you. There's a huge difference between keeping up with the times versus being creative. One is the head, the other is the tail. Creativity brings life. And here's the last one here. God gives us creativity to make us come alive. Now, sometimes when I'm working on a job, I'll have a suggestion of a specific paint to use on the trim or something. Based on my years of experience and my creativity, I know the gifts that God's given me, and so I suggest based on that. And I'll be like, hey, I think this would look really good here. That color would really pop there on that trim. It would make it come alive, and sometimes the project manager rejects it. But I still need that creative outlet because it's inside. That creativity is inside me. God's put that there. So I go home and I apply that creativity at home, or I find a different outlet there because that creativity has to come out. How many of you guys know that creativity will not dry up? If you use it, creativity will not dry. It cannot dry up as long as you keep on using it. Now, if you stop using it, yeah, it'll dry up. But if you keep on using that creativity, it's going to want to come out of you and come out of you and come out of you. And so I would see the finished product in my head, but the other person did not. It can sometimes be really easy for somebody like me or a creative to take that kind of personally when somebody doesn't want to take your advice. But here's what I found actually. Found this in this is a verse that I really go off of a lot here. It's Proverbs 16:9. A man's heart plans his course, but the Lord determines his steps. And so I found this to be true. My creativity is actually a partnership with the Creator. Without the Creator inside of me, I'm nowhere close to my fullest potential. And a couple weeks ago, I turned 35, and I wanted to capture this date in history here when I turned 35 years old. I wanted to get a picture, sunrise picture. And man, I tried desperately that morning to get a picture. And I don't know if you guys have anybody has an iPhone 6. They, like if you get them under 32 degrees, they will shut off. They will crash. And so I could not capture this picture for anything. And so man, I was just really bummed out, thinking my birthday was ruined. And so I got in the car and I was just about ready to head to work. I went up to turn around, and just as I was turning around, here was this other spot right here that was just a beautiful sunrise picture right there in a field. And so I was able to actually set up my phone and my tripod right there on my front seat with the heater blasting straight at the phone. And I was able to get this beautiful picture on my birthday. But it wouldn't have happened without God causing my steps to be redirected. Like God caused Joseph's steps to be redirected into the prison because the dream came through the prison. My nice birthday picture came through my phone crashing and everything falling apart, and I was so bummed out about that. But the dream comes through the prison. God redirects our steps. Yes. If we let Him. Here's the key to it all, though. The key to it all is getting your mind right. A couple years ago, when we were in California, a friend of mine came up to me and he said, "Hey, Randy, I feel like I got a word from God for you here, and I really feel like I'm not even qualified to deliver this word to you." He was a few years younger than me, and he said, I really feel like God's telling you that He wants you to get your mind right mentally. He wants you to get mentally healthy. And it took me a while to kind of grasp the concept of that, but I'm coming into that now. And so here's what it all comes down to: it's what you put into your mind. It affects how you think. Everything that you allow yourself to be influenced by, whether it's reading books, whether it's watching TV, whether it's listening to music, anything that you allow to come into your mind, that's what's going to come out of your heart. Whatever you fill yourself with is what's going to come out. If you're filling yourself with faith thinking, that's going to come out. If you're filling yourself with negativity, that's going to come out. So the key to it all is filling your heart, your mind with good things, pure things, faith thinking. How can we create for the kingdom of God if we're putting all kinds of junk in our minds? It says the first 2 hours of the day are the most important of the day, and I've found this to be very true. I don't know how many of you guys have found this to be true, but if you drag yourself out of bed in the morning, and the alarm clock goes off, and you hit the snooze again, and you hit the snooze again, and you hit the snooze again, and you don't want to get out of bed, and then your coffee pot breaks, you have no coffee, and then you're late to work. That affects the rest of your day. But when you get up early, when you make a point first thing today to focus on God, to fill your heart, your mind with His Word, to worship a little bit, that affects the rest of your day. And I found this to be very true as we were on the road back in 2016. We were, when you take 6 people, put them in a 26-foot motorhome for 3 months, that's a recipe for disaster. I don't know if anybody else here knows that, but I'm going to tell you, like anything that could have possibly gone wrong, breakdowns, It was a horrible experience touring the United States. But what we found in all of that is the importance of taking the first part of the day and focusing your heart and your mind and your attention on God and your assignment for the day, and asking God, Lord, what would you have for it? Who do you want to be our assignment today? Who do you, specifically, who do you want us to come in contact with here? And, of course, having devotions and praying with the kids, doing that thing first thing in the morning affected the rest of our day. We would have a good day on the road. But man, if we missed that, look out. I mean, it was rough. I don't even tell you. So focus your mind on the things of God. Matthew 6:33, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you as well. Romans 12:1, be transformed by the renewing of your mind, and you'll be able to prove what is the good and acceptable and perfect will of God. And Philippians 4:8, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is just, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think on these things. That's the key to it all right there. Filling your heart and your mind with good things, because what you put in, man, it's gonna just eventually bubble up and over, and that's gonna be what comes out, whether it's good or bad. You know, if you put bad in constantly, that's what's gonna come out. What do you want coming out, good or bad? Well, here's the cool thing: if the Spirit of the one who created all things lives inside of you and has made you creative, then anywhere that you go, you have the power to change the atmosphere. Yes. Anywhere that you go, you have the power to change the culture, you have the power to bring joy, and you have the power to bring life because it's inside of you. You can bring that joy and creativity, your gifts, to the people that you are assigned to, and that will bring about the fulfillment of the dream that God has given you. That will bring about purpose in your life. I want to share a new song with you guys. I just finished it yesterday. Is that all right with you?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to teach you guys this chorus here. It goes like this. I come alive when I live for you. You're everything I'm living for. I come alive when I live for you. I'm living for. You guys got that? Handle that? Alright. Once was a dead man, living without purpose. I felt worthless. Put your hands together. Nothing to live for, nothing to die for. I felt hopeless. Then you changed my life. Open up my eyes so I can see you had plans for me all along that I couldn't see. I come alive when I live for you. You're everything I'm living for. I come alive when I live for you. You're everything I'm living for. Now I'm awakened to the good life you have for me. And it's clear now that you have never, ever left me. 'Cause you changed my life, opened up my eyes so I could see you had plans for me all along that I couldn't see. I come alive when I live for you. You're everything I'm living for. I come alive when I live for you. creation, a new creation. Here we go, come on! If anyone is in Christ, they are a new creation, a new creation. If anyone is in Christ, they are a new creation, a new creation. Thank you. Hey, thank you guys so much for coming out tonight. I want to just leave you guys with one last thing here yet, and that's that it all comes back to Jesus. Without Him, nothing else matters. When you surrender yourself to Him and create in partnership with Him, it just opens up a whole new life to you. And it's a joy and a fulfillment that is really unexplainable unless you do it yourself. So I would really encourage you to do that. I'm not a salesman at all. If anybody knows me, you know I'm not a salesman. So the point is, I'm not going to lead you in a sinner's prayer because honestly, it's unbiblical. What the Bible says is if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised Him from the dead, you will be saved. All there is to it. So I just want to leave you with that tonight. And we're going to do one more song here called Living Hope. And if you'd like to make Jesus Lord of your life, I would encourage you to do that. But that's your decision. You got to do that on your own.